So for the agenda today, we'll start with a quick overview of the problem and the solution. I'll then introduce Tilia Labs and also talk about our customer, J-Mill Packaging. And then I'll dive into, take a deeper dive into the challenge that the customer was facing, J-Mill, and then talk a bit about the solutions that we provided to address these challenges, and then the results of these challenges. So our client, J-Mill Packaging, came to us with two main challenges that they wanted to address. How do I estimate digitally printed corrugated packaging jobs? And how do I nest customer artwork files onto corrugated sheets efficiently? So meet Jessica Farrow. Jessica is the digital design supervisor at J-Mill Packaging in Mishawaka, Indiana. And you're going to hear from Jessica throughout this presentation to help us really understand the problem that they were facing, how they tackled the problem, and then how they employed software and AI to help solve these industry challenges that we see in that's common in digital corrugated print and finishing. So let's listen to what Jessica has to say when we asked her to sum up the problem that J-Mill was facing.
I know vividly because it was brutal. So back then we did not have any software whatsoever. We would receive a PDF with the artwork and the die line. We would receive an Adobe Illustrator file, and then we would receive an ARD CAD file. And we would nest them individually in Illustrator by copying and pasting. That's when we would figure out how many we could fit on the sheet. But it was all just manual laying out by copy and pasting.
So our solution was to employ software, in our case, our product Tilia Phoenix, to quickly derive the most cost-effective production layouts using artificial intelligence simulation. So at a high level, what we're doing is taking multiple products, multiple orders, or in our case here, to the right, multiple parts of the POP display, and solve the challenging problem of nesting on a sheet, figuring out how many out are going to fit on a sheet, and automate that process of impositioning, creating the most cost-effective print production layouts for your different digital print devices and digital finishing devices. So Tilia Labs is a software company, and we develop technology-forward solutions that have a measurable financial impact for our customers. And we do that in a very modern user interface-driven software experience. So a little bit about our company. We were founded in 2012. And we grew since 2012 our distribution to over 42 different countries. And year to date, we have just over 600 licenses sold. And we recently won in 2019 an Intertech Award for our true AI technology, which I'll be talking quite a bit about during the presentation. And then our customer base. So of course, we have customers outside of packaging, like traditional book and commercial print type customers, wide format and labels. So a little bit about our client. J-Mill is a traditional brown box plant that got into digital print in spring of 2018. And they started with one press, the HP Cytex 11,000. And at the time, Jessica was the only layout and graphic artist. And they started by, she started by just producing about 5 orders a week to kind of get their feet wet with digital print. J-Mill now has 2 people managing production layouts and a CSR who uses Phoenix for estimating every day, fulfilling upwards of 60 orders per day. Doing everything from earlock mailers, custom shippers, and digitally printed POP displays. J-Mill has recently also invested in further automation with their increased workload by purchasing the HP Cytex 17,000 with the board feeder automations you can see up there. So talking a little bit about their challenge, with this increase in production capabilities by purchasing faster and highly automated digital printing presses, as well as increasing the amount of digital finishing capabilities, the bottleneck started to get pushed not where it was, which was production and actually fulfilling these orders, but now it started to become the bottleneck started to get pushed down into estimation and pre-production when generating layouts. And with the recent investment in their production equipment, the question quickly became for JMill, how do we feed the beast? How do we feed these large automated fast printing presses efficiently? So let's hear what Jessica has to say.
In the spring of 2018 is when we fully started taking digital orders from a few customers of ours that would send them daily. And it was our job at that point to kind of figure out what we were going to do with them, how we were going to get them through the plant, and kind of understand that process. We would, in Adobe Illustrator, export all those cut and crease lines into CAD, which we would then spit that file out to our cutting tables to cut on our Kongsberg. And then we would remove those die lines from our Illustrator file and send the PDF out to our RIP software to go to our printer. So that is what we had to do for every single one. Double-sided was a little more complicated because we not only had to do the front, we then had to have it back up appropriately. So we were using a lot of guidelines and copying and pasting to make sure those files were backed up correctly and that they were going to print okay. The more you copy and paste, the bigger the file gets. And sometimes they would take like 20 minutes to even save. But I would say anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes, just tediously manually nesting them and getting them out to all the machines and just setting up orders that were for 1 box, 2 box, 10 boxes. The amount of time it took for us to do those manually just outweighed the profit that we were actually making on those orders.
So, part of JMill's challenges and what Jessica elaborated on is picking the right software tool and how critical that is to maintain productivity. So, being a traditional corrugated sheet plant meant that there was little experience in preparing graphic files. Prior to their digital print capabilities at JMill, all the graphics and sheet layouts, they were managed externally by their die or pre-press house. So with digital, the pre-press and sheet layout and in graphic preparation and handling was up to JMill to manage, and customer graphics, the responsibility now was on JMill to prepare the customer graphics for press and get them ready and create the most optimized sheet layouts, where this was something they weren't used to before. So, they were using a mix of tools, AI, like you heard, a lot of manual interactions between AI and Artio's CAD and Excel to do some calculations. Operators were having to make decisions about what the best sheet size was. They were copying and pasting, doing a lot of the nesting manually inside of Illustrator, and this was cutting into their profits for the short runs because it just took a lot of time. So let's hear Jessica further describe a few of JMill's challenges.
So we would get like displays that needed 10 different pieces, 12 different pieces. Like I can think of 2 jobs that it saved us because one, we didn't know how to quote them because we didn't know how many sheets they were going to take. Like it was 10 different pieces, different shapes, different everything, but it was all ran on one flute. So we knew it had that in common, and we just had to figure out like how to quote this job, how is it going to run internally, figuring out how those 12 components would need to fit on a sheet.
So estimating large display jobs, displays that have multiple parts, having to manually nest these parts, manually calculating the number of sheets. In many cases, this would take hours of time and layout. So we then asked Jessica about their investigation, JMO's investigation to solve these challenges that they were facing. Let's have a listen to JMO's objectives.
Our main focus is streamlining our workflow so that the least amount of people have to touch orders that come into our system, because we know we can't grow until we streamline the process.
So we then asked Jessica about JMO's journey to finding a solution to help solve these challenges. Let's hear what Jessica has to say.
It took us until the fall of that same year until we got our first nesting software. It was nice because it directly connected to the Zun cutter, so it made exporting the cut file a lot easier than how we were doing it prior. But the problem we had was it didn't nest it. It only nested it one way. Like for a mailer, it would keep the dog ears going one direction, so it wouldn't nest the complete wasted area that it had. It wouldn't nest it fully, if that makes sense. It would just nest it how it thought it filled the sheet. Like it didn't pick a sheet size for you. You had to tell it what sheet size you wanted to use, and it just wasn't the best nesting software for us.
So JMail, Jessica explained, looking at alternative solutions. So, previously, of course, using manual ways of nesting with Adobe Illustrator or in Ardios CAD with multi-part displays. Most already own these softwares. They're familiar with tools like CAD and Illustrator for graphics, and it's easy to get started, although there's limitations. It's slow and it's tedious, it's manual, there's no front and back for graphics. Large files and doing a lot of copying and pasting creates large files, and it's hard to rip. There's no marks, right? And then, traditional nesting solutions, which Jessica just alluded to, allowed them to start creating CAD layouts. It was nice because it would reduce waste and add production marks, but there were limitations in their case. One material and one sheet at a time, manual importing of jobs, so bringing in one part or one job at a time. There's no way of no dynamic sheet or press changing or evaluating different presses, and there's limited product group logic for keeping things together and keeping things separated. A true shape where, as Jessica was mentioning with dog ears, it was only keeping it in one orientation and not flipping it to fully maximize the sheet. So JMail was challenged with a bit of these limitations. So it was at that point when JMail reached out to Tilia Labs and started evaluating Phoenix. So here's what Jessica has to say.
I think we did like a mini study of what we were currently using, and then we sent you a file, and we just looked at two different nesting outputs that each software generated, and we could just automatically tell that Tilia Labs was going to help us more than what we were previously using. It nested it better, it used less waste. We were printing less sheets because of that less waste. So just in those first 30 seconds of hitting that nest button in Tilia Labs, I think we were sold.
So let's talk a little bit about our solution, Tilia Phoenix. So Tilia Phoenix is the industry's first AI-driven imposition and planning solution. So with Phoenix, it's simple. We developed a product to help human planners and help pre-press. And we do that by essentially training or modeling your different equipment inside of our application. So loading, your printing equipment, loading your cutting equipment, loading your stocks and your stock sizes and your speeds and your costs. And then once Phoenix is aware of that production information, it's just as simple as dragging in your orders, in our case via a CSV file. You can see we bring in a multi-part, was about 24 parts of this display. And because we've already modeled our different devices, different printing and finishing equipment. You can see we just pick, in our case, the page wide and the Zune G3, define our sheet size, or we could evaluate multiple sheet sizes. And within seconds, we start generating different permutations. And at the same time, we're generating these permutations, we're reducing waste. The algorithm is trying to optimize to create and find the most cost-effective way of running the job based on the order that the customer placed. Yeah, looking at potential different sheet sizes, different presses.
I have a few associates that work mainly customer service, and they're doing more of the coding, and they'll have me or someone else drag and drop it in there, see how many fit on a sheet, and we'll use like How It Nests as a coding tool. We'll get might not look very serious, but then we toss it on a sheet and check the cut time, and we're like, shoot, this is outrageous. We need to price this accordingly. So we use it every day just to help us as a coding tool.
So after Phoenix quickly imposes the orders with the AI-driven planning algorithm, Phoenix also creates these production reports of the orders that are used to help operators keep track of jobs, help visualize the sheet layouts that were generated, and determine the print and cut times, as you can see over there on the right-hand side, as well as adding the marks and barcodes that are required and necessary for digital print production. So as you kind of heard what Jessica had to say, they're using Phoenix every day, and Phoenix is not only helping them solve the challenging problem of imposing and optimizing their material, but also in estimation to help with complex jobs, to quickly determine how long it's going to take to print and how long it's going to take to cut, so they can start making business decisions with data at their fingertips. And to wrap up here, we asked Jessica a bit about the training and implementation. So like I mentioned earlier, user experience and interface design is a core value at Tilia Labs. And because of this, we really do pride ourselves on the implementation process of Phoenix. We really just kind of boil it down to 2 online sessions to learn how to import your orders and to set up your presses and to set up your digital cutting devices. And after that, the 2 4-hour sessions, our customers are typically running and up and running with Phoenix shortly thereafter. So if we look at JMill's flowchart, you can see that Phoenix became the imposition tool that they use every day for creating layouts and estimating cutting times for their pre-press team, for their CSRs, and their estimators. So we did ask Jessica about their implementation process, and here's what she had to say.
I felt like I had a good grasp on it from the start. It's very easy to use. It's user-friendly. So the training itself, to just get us going, I think it was seamless. It was very easy to just start using on day one. Teaching my associates how to use it, it was, you push a few buttons and you're off on your way.
So if we look at the results of the implementation of Phoenix at JMill, before, it was taking anywhere from 3 to 4 hours of layout work daily. They were manually nesting these layouts and manually estimating their jobs. In some cases, kind of just a shot in the dark for estimating their jobs. And they were averaging only about 15 jobs per day at the time. Now, after Phoenix and implementing Phoenix, they're down to 1 hour of layout work daily with an average of about 50 jobs per day. So, the before and after is quite astonishing. And, they've automated their layout creation to make that process much more efficient. Thank you for listening, and feel free to reach out, tilialabs.com.